Hello and welcome to Champ Select, your go-to competitive Legends of Runeterra podcast. I'm Alex, as per usual. Joining me are my two co-hosts, Noble.
Hello.
And Hugh.
Hello.
And today we've got a lot of community discussion to talk about. I think there's just a lot of really interesting points. The meta is kind of settling. People are kind of getting an idea of what this new season is going to look like. And Riot's come out with a lot of really interesting articles about, they're very transparent about the meta, the health, why they think the community perspectives are the way they are. There's a lot of interesting articles. We've got a lot of metadata.
Yeah.
We're going to have a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, and our first, and I would just like to say, this is the first metadata that I'm going to say that I trust, or that I think is accurate. Because, yes, Aurelia did have a 63% win rate in the first, 4 days after the patch, because it was the new deck that was broken.
Yeah.
And, people were playing old decks that they thought would be good against it that weren't, like TLC, and weren't playing the decks that were actually good against it, which are aggro.
And
that kind of stuff was going on.
Yeah, and other people were playing all the other champions, which were bad, like a Zillion or whatever. So,
And the one we haven't even mentioned, he who may not be named.
He who must not be named.
The rock of my dreams.
And
he prefers Dwayne.
And also people just weren't used to this particular explosive strategy and weren't used to playing against it.
The first 3 times you play against this deck, you're like, what the fuck? This is nonsense.
How do I keep dying?
They're 4-1s?
You start your turn at 16 with 3 blockers and you're like, I'll be fine. You're never fine.
Update.
You always die, yeah. Okay, but before we get into anything real quick, last week we talked a little bit about potentially having people send screenshots in and do a little bit of what's the play going on. It seems like people really liked that idea. So we're actually just going to go ahead and make a channel in our Discord. So if you have some screenshots of hard plays or you come into any, take a screenshot, join the Discord. Link all that'll be in the description below. And I think it's going to be really interesting to talk about a bunch of plays.
Or
I think
everybody's put one in general
better.
so that they're around.
Yeah, they're around. I think it's going to make everybody better to look at hard spots and think about them and hear what other people have to say. So I'm actually really excited. I think it's going to make I think it's just going to make us better players too, to just see more hard spots.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, totally.
All right. Without further ado, let's get into, we should probably start with this Cosmic Meta Report.
Yeah, this is the classic thing. We read them whenever they come out. He does absolutely amazing work for the community. Yep. He also streams. You can check him out. He's on Twitter. You can see what he's up to. So the meta review, May 17th, 20% of the meta is playing Aurelia Azir with 57,000 matches and a 53% win rate.
53%.
Which is lower than the 55% threshold. 14% is playing Dragon mid-range, 41,000 matches, 51% win rate. 11% playing Nasus Thresh. I'm not going to keep reading the matches.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
54% win rate. 9% playing Drayus and Ezreal with a 53% win rate. Woo, we did it!
Getting there.
Cracked the 50. Discard aggro with a 55% win rate. Sleeper discard aggro buffs nerfs incoming.
That deck seems hype.
Azir Burn with a 54% win rate. Watcher Combo with a 51% win rate. Overwhelm with a 53% win rate. And Deep with a 49% win rate. All of those
holding it down.
Azir Burn, Watcher Combo, Overwhelm are all and Discard Aggro are 6, 5, 4, 4 respectively. And then Deep has a nice little 2% for the only representation of Bilgewater in the meta. Yeah. Maybe we can unnerf that Wiggly Burblefish card.
I'm good.
Just kidding.
I don't want to go back to that hellscape.
Can you imagine that deck trying to beat Aurelia?
It probably wouldn't.
Ever.
Ever.
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
Probably
that
would be really
just
bad.
absolutely could not beat that deck.
Yeah, you red card once and you're like, well, this didn't actually do anything.
Yeah, you're like, oh.
Because none of their units they exist yet that you want a red card.
They never exist.
You can
just
deal
hit you for damage.
You can deal 1 to Inspiring Marshal.
Yeah.
That's a start.
You flip a Twisted Fate and then they tag you 3 times with one once and you play your second spell and red card them and you're like, yes,
got him.
And then they do it again and you're like, I'm dead.
Gold card, take 9.
Fuck with ballistic bot. Wow, it is hilarious how bad that deck would be against this deck.
Yeah, I don't know. People are still playing some variants of TF Fizz. I've seen it a couple times, mostly in Gauntlet and Tournament, where people bring in best of 3s. It's an absolute suicide ladder deck, I think. But I do think it's not awful in Tournament.
What if TLC and Thresh Nasus and Aurelia said hello?
Yeah. Okay. So all things considered, with that meta and combined with the article that I think we're going to spend a lot of time talking about, I actually feel like the meta's doing pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. Yeah.
Real quick, Deny was dethroned as the most played Ionia card, replaced by
Aurelia.
Probably not. It would have to be. I mean, Aurelia is the only.
Is it? What's the one drop?
Dancing Droplet.
That one.
Dancing Droplet.
That's what I was going to guess.
78.9% of Ionia decks. This little boy doing some work.
That card is a house.
He's so cute. He looks so drinkable.
So drinkable.
Looks delicious.
Is there any other cards in the game that have the quality drinkable, you think? I'll wait.
I don't know.
I don't think so either. Okay. All right. So I do want to talk about this article. This was posted on Reddit by Dovigates, who is one of the lead developer designers at Riot. I think I pronounced that right. Yeah. Basically, it's quite a long article. But I do think it's pretty important. So I'm going to put a link in the description for everybody that has not read it. I'm not going to read the whole thing word for word. I highly recommend you do. But I am going to give you a quick paraphrase so that just to make sure everybody's caught up on what we're talking about. So
real quick, Aurelion Sol's the second most played Targon card. Fun fact.
Wow. How?
It's in 65% of decks,
But the decks only ever play 2 of them.
Yeah.
Well, it's not about the number of copies, is it?
I don't know if it's... It's card popularity by region.
Oh, yeah,
then
maybe.
It kind of doesn't make sense to me that Drag Dredgers is higher than Nautilus, but that's only by 0.2%. So I guess there are deep decks that don't play Nautilus. Yeah, okay.
I don't know why, but
They're wrong,
I guess there might be one of them, apparently.
Anyway.
Okay, so here's somewhat of a paraphrase of this Reddit article from Dovigates. Hello, the LOR community firmly believes that we are building the game together with the community. We're trying to be as transparent as possible. It basically, he's saying Riot and most companies tend to do a lot of things through corporate speech and whatever. In this article, he's very much like, here are the people that are making the decisions. Dovigates, me, Bokerp, game design, lead on gameplay, and Ruben Zhu, the game designer on gameplay. He's responsible for multiple cards. So these are the 3 people that are making all of the decisions, basically.
The final decision.
Or at least all of the information flows through them. Yeah,
correct. So everything that ends up in a patch note had to be approved by these 3 people.
Yeah.
Basically.
So it sounds like.
It is basically what he's telling us, which is kind of interesting. This is probably true for most games, to be honest, but you really don't get this type of transparency most of the time.
I have no idea who makes the decision. Like, I have no idea who to yell at about Splinter Twin and Magic, which is probably good because they would get like
I never knew who was
torched,
who was in charge of the Hearthstone.
An angry mob would show up at the house of whoever banned
it's probably true.
Looting. There would be some faithless looting going on.
There'd be some faithless looting indeed. He goes on to say, all the teams in Legends of Runeterra are extremely collaborative, so the 3 of us do not make decisions without the others' input, and anyone on the team can and does give us feedback and suggestions regarding live balance. However, the 3 of us are the core people responsible for final decisions made related to live balance. He's goes a little bit more into detail of that, paraphrasing a little, since the release of Guardians of the Ancient, I think our meta has been great. The release has been one of our most successful. We are seeing more players play the game and more games being played per player. That's obviously great news for everyone that likes Legends of Runeterra.
Yep.
I'm going to share some internal data in this post, and I would like to keep in mind that this data is a tool. Data informs our decisions, but quite often a single point of data does not tell us the whole story. I know this has been a boring post so far, but we'll try to keep it interesting. Right now, there is no plan to make any live balance changes to Aurelia or Azir in patch 2.9. According to our internal data, Irelia's best performing deck currently has a 52.5% win rate, and it's trending downward over time.
That lines up with the numbers that I said I trusted that we just got from Cosmic.
Yep, absolutely, which I agree. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but have you felt that too?
Yeah,
I feel like I've felt that.
Like well. I've been playing that deck, and my personal win rate is plummeting. Like it's still insane total, but like recently it's like a lot closer to 50-50.
Yeah, no, the deck has just gradually felt less and less impressive when people just eventually started figuring out how to play against it and which decks are actually
whenever
good
I
against it.
Whenever I play against it, I get raffle stomped. But whenever I play it recently, it's not been going as well.
Yeah. All right. And here's the 3 paragraphs that I think are the most interesting out of this article. So I'm just going to go ahead and read them. It's a common practice in our community, and all card game communities, I imagine, to use sensational and hyperbolic language when describing cards, decks, champions, metas, etc., which is very true. I don't think there's anything wrong with that practice. we all live on the internet, but I do think it makes discussions like this one harder when the community calls a deck with a 52% win rate overpowered and a deck with a 49% win rate C tier, unplayable, or trash. Guilty. There are champions in our game that have decks with over 50% win rate that this subreddit repeatedly dismisses as unplayable. In my opinion, too many players put too much value in an aggregated 1% win rate difference when deciding which deck to play, when their personal experience will have a different variance in win rate than the aggregated number. Because of the hyperbole, there are many extremely good champions and decks right now that very few players play because they are not popular or because players overvalue 1% win rate. So I guess I just want to take a step back and talk about that in general, because, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I feel like I'm definitely being added in this article, right? Like I feel like we are absolutely guilty of calling decks with a 49% win rate unplayable.
That's true.
Yeah.
At least
except we're all pretty big simps for Zoe, so
yeah, well, that's fair. But
that girl could have a 45% win rate, and I'd play her in every seasonal.
Yeah, except for Lee Zoe, that one's a gem.
Gets a pass. Yeah,
it's a diamond in the rough. But like it's true. I mean, we complain about people complaining about cards, right? Like we frequently have complained that people are like bitching about decks with a 52 or a 53% win rate, right? Like the Commander Ledros deck, we complained. We're like, this deck doesn't even have a 50% win rate. Why are people complaining? Azir Irelia, we thought it was maybe too good back then. I've solidly changed my tune. I think it's fine. Yeah, it's solidly warped the meta, and it took 2.5 weeks to warp the meta to a point where it's fine.
Yeah.
But now that we're there, I'm okay with it. Like it seems totally fine. No. It doesn't have too high of a win rate. It isn't oppressive or anything.
And we say, and I just want to say, like right now, like we say warped, like that somehow like it's like distorting the meta in a bad way, but the meta's changing, and like that's what metas do.
Warped
like,
isn't bad.
It's not worse now than it was before. Like a new deck is powerful, and so the decks that are good against it are powerful, and so the decks that are good against that are powerful, and thus the cycle continues. Like this is just what happens in card games. Like we can't just like. Another thing is right. Like your B tier decks that aren't really insanely powerful themselves are going to get good. We talked about this once in our tier list article. They're going to fluctuate between like A and C tier because Correct. Sometimes the best decks are really good against them and sometimes the best decks are really bad against them. And that's natural and that happens and it's good. So when we say like it's warping the meta, it's not like this is the end of the world. Like the only reason this seems okay is because everything is hilariously out of whack. Like it's not that. It's that the meta has shifted and changed.
Yeah, you're right. Honestly, we use warped a lot, and warp kind of has a negative connotation, but really it shouldn't.
Yeah, that's the biggest, most important part.
Distorting my beautiful Braum decks into some disgusting creature that I don't even want to play with anymore. Playing 3 ice shards. 3!
Yeah.
I've always played ice shards, but whatever.
The words like warp and distort, like there's a bunch of words that have very, very negative connotations, and as he mentioned, language is very important when we're discussing anything related to card games, and we all use hyperbolic language all the time.
We we always use hyperbolic language.
Every time?
Every time.
Nonstop.
Yep, constantly.
100%.
Okay, unironically, I do want to take a quick moment to step back and say I think that we actually unironically, maybe 3 of the people, in fact, the 3 people I know who use hyperbolic language the most. We call things. I can't remember the last time you came to me with a deck and I was like, it's got a 49% win rate, so I probably won't play it, and I'll go ladder with something else. But it's a reasonable no, if you come to me with a deck that has a 49% win rate, I'm going to call you an idiot and spit in your face and call it trash. like
Joke's on you. I like that.
We use I mean, I get memed on a lot for using the term unplayable, which I feel like may be the word I've said the most in my life.
Yeah, unplayable.
I mean, when the words literally unplayable are an actual meme, like it doesn't help. But hyperbolic language is something that
this episode is descending into a twisted parody of what our episodes usually look like. Warped, one might say. Sorry,
you're fine. That's pretty much it. I mean, we just use hyperbolic language all the time.
Yeah, we really do. But like, it really does.
As long as you're aware of something like that.
I called Draven unplayable I think I called it unplayable garbage, literal trash fire, like almost that exact verbiage or something last week.
Yeah, and then we played
I was
against
like,
one
I
of
just
the
don't know.
best players around on stream today.
Yeah, I was like,
and
I just don't know how this deck wins any games. It's awful. It can't I mean, sure, it's got a 49% win rate, but it's terrible. It's like a conversation I think we had last time.
Yeah, notice.
And notably,
stand by that
another
for what it's worth.
really good thing about this article is he says, because of the hyperbole that there are many extremely good champions and decks right now that very few players play because they're not popular because players overvalue 1% win rate, I'm going to list out every champion right now that has at least one deck with a 50% or higher win rate in the current meta. Since Guardian of the Ancient was released, all of these decks have played enough games to be statistically significant in the data set. 39 out of the 61 total champions, 63.9% of them, have a deck like this.
I don't think we should read all of these.
No, but
You should
Anivia's
look
on
at
this
it.
list.
I mean, it's like a lot of them.
Yeah, Anivia's on this list, Fiora's on this list. Well, that one's because of failure of Fiora. But Gangplank, who I haven't seen in fucking forever, is on this list.
Apparently, Soraka Tom Kench has above a 50% win rate.
Yeah, Callista is on this list.
Yeah, there's a couple champions that are
Quinn Renekton,
the
ones that are in the
Yep.
in the decent decks. But then Teemo is there. I'm sure it's a burn deck or something. Tryndamere is on this list. Wait a minute, Tryndamere's on this list? What the? Okay,
Where's Tryndamere going?
Tryndamere on the list, man.
Where is he?
It's on the list.
How the hell
where
does he have a
is.
deck with 50% win rate? What deck is that?
I don't know, but it sounds awful.
Boros?
No,
Is it Boros?
No. I've actually played against it a few times. I don't
The Overwhelm deck?
I don't remember what it is. I just remember seeing Tryndamere and being like, "What is he doing?" And then I died.
I lost to it.
Yeah, and I lost to it. And he's an 8-4 with Overwhelm.
I unironically have I have a very similar feel. I also have had that happen. I have no idea what my opponent was playing, but I remember distinctly losing to Tryndamere this season. So
yeah.
It's
out there.
You queue up and
lays in the dark.
he battle fury'd it, and then I died. I just died. Yeah, it was rough.
It's exactly. I mean, that's what happens.
Waiting
sometimes.
under the surface, Tryndamere.
Maybe it's the Targon's Peak deck.
Hit ya.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's the only one I can think of.
Asol.
It's Asol Tryndamere, right? They play
I
Asol
think they
Tryndamere.
probably play Zoe's.
I don't think so.
They should play Zoe's.
I think they might play one, but I'm pretty sure it's 3 Asol, 2 Tryndamere.
I know that more than once they've cast Field Rush against me, and there's been a Zoe in play after.
I buy that.
Huh.
I would play Zoe in that deck if I was going to play it.
I think part of the reason people shy away from these champions and decks with these champions a lot of the time, I think part of the blame goes to how much the community fixates on prominent members of the community and what they play.
Yeah, I mean, I think
what they hate.
Yeah. It really is. So Reddit really is an echo chamber, and I feel like Twitter is too. Right.
Every social media
platform, including your group of like-minded people, right? Like our friends, our group of friends is an echo chamber. Absolutely. A lot of the time we get on the mic once a week and we talk for 2 hours and we all just agree with each other the whole time. And then the next week we're all just horribly wrong or whatever.
Yeah,
it's man, why did all of us have this wrong opinion? Well, it's because we all
reinforced it
with
each other.
And and we keep, you build upon things, right? So a deck with a 49% win rate goes from suboptimal to bad to unplayable to complete trash, right?
Yeah.
Or and it can have the same win rate the whole time. It's just you have the conversation 4 separate times and it gets telephoned between people, right? Or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I can remember most of the times I've just outright disagreed with something you two have agreed on, and that's because it happens pretty infrequently.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time we agree with each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And very rarely does one of us deviate and say, actually,
I think it's way more interesting when that happens. But
I agree. And
I'm going to disagree with you. It's way more interesting when we all agree.
This really is just going to be a satire episode, huh?
Yeah, really. We're going deep on it. Don't worry about it.
I hope you guys like language puns, because there's been a lot of them today.
Oh, yeah. I want to say it's just this level of transparency from Riot is incredible.
Oh, this is this is, I think, the best article I have ever seen posted by any game development team.
I've read some pretty good Magic articles and some really funny Magic articles. Every time they broke standard, they put an article and were like, "This is what we did wrong." I and then like the next week a new set would come out and it would break standard. Like there's a 4-year period of like the most broken Magic sets, and they're all punctuated by article about what we did wrong, and then doing
next busted
the thing
one
really bad. Yeah.
Well, so like, okay, here's what I want to say about why I'm so in love with this article.
Yeah.
First things first, it starts like the first sentence of this article, or like the first community is, "Hi everyone, the LOR team firmly believes that we are building this game together with the community, with you all. We try to be as open, as transparent as possible." Right? I read the first like 3 sentences of this. I was like, yeah, sure, like whatever, yada, yada, yada. And then I read the last sentence of this paragraph, which is like, "I realize that may sound like corporate bullshit to some of you, but I take it, not we, I take it very seriously, and I know everyone on our team does as well." Immediately, I think this might be one of the first articles I've ever read where he came out and he was like, "Here's Riot's opinion. This is my opinion. Like, I am writing this as the person who is going to post your patch notes. This is why I am doing these things." Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's very accountable. He outs himself and the other people. Is like, "You got a problem? Me, Borkup, Rubenzu. Like, these are the 3 people. Yeah. These are the people. If something's wrong, it's our fault. If something's right,
this is my address. Come for me."
Yeah.
Like, I really, really like that. Like, this gives me so much faith that all of the times that they made a nerf that I was like, I don't know if that needed to happen, that I was just probably wrong.
I very trust. I think these people, I mean, I don't know. We've sang a lot of praises of the development design team for this game, like just in general over time.
Yeah.
This article nails it down for me. Like, it's so transparent. It's so forward. It hits a point that I think is really important, like where people use a lot of hyperbolic languages, and it creates metas that people like. It creates its own echo chamber, like I was trying to say, right? Like, somebody calls a deck bad, then it becomes unplayable, then nobody plays it, even if the deck had a 50% win rate the whole time.
Yeah,
right?
The meta itself is an echo chamber where Aziralia has a 30% win rate because people think it's good, not because it is the like there are, like he said, a ton of decks that are performing well above 50% win rates with champions that we laugh at when we read them on the list, right? We're like, a Nifia, really? That deck has a statistically significant sample size and above a 50% win rate?
Yeah, how? Like, I don't know how.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, apparently it does, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you came to me with your Nivea deck, I would have told you to go put it away until Aziralia is done.
Or whatever.
Like, we don't want to see that for now. Yeah, but apparently it's good. So like, this is really surprising. The one thing I guess I do want to talk about is specifically with relation to competitive Legends of Runeterra, obviously, is the 1% win rate. Yeah. So this article takes a little bit of time, talking about specifically 49% versus 50%, 51%. And at the end of the day, right, like, it is only 1%. So the difference between 49% and 51%. So that's 2%. Right? Let's leave it there. 49 and 51. I feel like this article gets a lot of things right. The one thing that I actually have a problem with is calling that 1% insignificant. I firmly disagree. I think that an aggregate 1% over a deck's, like, over thousands of games,
45,000 matches or whatever,
for any deck is absolutely statistically significant. And I do think that it's kind of unreasonable for the game developers or the game designers to expect players to want to play decks with a 49% win rate instead of the deck with a 51% win rate. Because there are players that would, right? There are players, and even I would suggest, like, seasonal tournament, boom, data just dropped, but you'd been playing the 49% win rate Lee Zoe deck all season, right? Yeah, I'm not going to tell you not to play it in lieu of the 51% win rate that you have no reps on. You should play the deck you're more familiar with, right? Your win rate can easily be above 50% with any deck when you account for familiarity and whatnot. But I do think that, like, the competitive meta is driven by the best players most of the time. The most active community members are frequently the best players. People look to the fact that you can click the leaderboard at any time and look at the number 1 ranked player and just import their deck, right? Yeah. That feature too, and the fact that cards are so easily craftable, all lead to the problem that why would you play the 49% win rate deck if you have all the data? Yeah. I'm not going to play the 49% win rate deck instead of the 51% deck.
On the other hand, like, that when you play a 49% win rate, you are not doomed to have a 49% win rate.
No,
like,
of
if you're
course
good
not.
at the deck, you're going to have a 55% win rate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, so
But, like,
it's just
if you're-
going to be a little harder.
Yeah, if you're looking at two decks, you haven't played either of them before, and you're like, I want a new deck to ladder with. I'm bored of this one. Like, what should I play? You're just not going to, unless you have some particular affinity or some outside factor, right? Like, if you're making an independent choice, then you're going to pick the one with a higher win rate. So it doesn't actually surprise me all that much that these echo chambers exist, because I mean, like, I'm part of the problem.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Like, I'm not gonna play the 49% win
I'm
rate
not
deck
gonna
because it has Braum in it, and I think that's cool. I don't give a shit, right? I want to win LP, you know.
I'm here, hello opponent. I'm here for your ladder points.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting because I actually have kind of a counterpoint
please.
to the claim that the 1% or whatever isn't significant or is. I kind of lean more towards agreeing with whatever the guy.
Dovik 80s.
Sure, I'll let you keep saying it.
Same. I hope I'm saying it right then.
The author of the article, in that I think what they're aiming towards isn't that it's not like statistically insignificant. It's that it's insignificant in the sense that it shouldn't 1%, 49, we'll go back to 49 to 51. 49% versus 51% shouldn't make the difference between unplayable trash and good deck.
That I agree with.
Exactly. And I think that's the more important part that
I agree. Yeah.
that he was leaning towards, but I do get what you mean. Although I do think that like you or Noble just said, just because a deck has a 49% win rate doesn't mean you do.
Very true.
Like we always talk about Lee Zoe all the time.
Lee Zoe is just such a good example for every situation, I find.
It really is. And it,
Great deck, great example.
Yep.
What can I say?
I'm gonna be I'm gonna be putting like Lee Zoe. In my next interview, I'm gonna be like, name a time when you had to overcome a challenge. Well, when I was playing Lee Zoe.
Oh God, where was I?
Sorry, Lee Zoe 49% win rate. We're using it as an example.
Yeah. I was saying that I think the biggest takeaway from that should be more that you should be willing to play decks within a threshold of percentages from, I would start it at 48 and maybe go to like, well,
you're not allowed to play anything with a 55% win rate or higher. Those are big.
Yeah, I was going to say like, there's no upper limit to that. Let me just say it because obviously if you find a deck with a 70% win rate you should play it.
Yep.
Because,
you should play it.
Because why in the hell wouldn't you?
I'd play it.
But
that deck's going to have a 50% win rate real soon, I tell you what.
It's true. But you should be more willing to play 48% win rate decks because it doesn't, just because across the entirety of the player base, it performs at that level, doesn't mean you won't perform better with it.
Yeah, and you got to remember that like a lot of these data sets are being derived. It's an aggregate player base, right? So a lot of the data is certainly statistically significant, but a lot of these matches are players that are new to the game or in lower ranks where sure, I bet I could have a 50% win rate with a Nivea and Iron, right? Like probably, but like I don't think that's really what's happening here. I do want to what you were saying, Hugh, like, so I think that it is reasonable for these echo chambers to exist, basically was my point. But I do also think that like we as the community, and I'm going to at myself here in this too, we do use too much hyperbolic language. I called as Draven trash last week. It's not trash. It's not unplayable. It's got a 53% win rate. The deck's good. Right, just because I don't think
now that it has a 53% win rate, you want to touch it. Come on,
it had like a 52% win rate last week.
Okay, that's fair.
It's like basically the same.
Okay,
but that doesn't mean that, like I can still play as Draven on ladder and go 0-5 with it, which is happened.
True story,
right?
Yeah.
It is a true story, right? And then I can be like, this deck is awful. Why does anybody play it, right? And obviously I know why people play it. I just lost 5 games in a row. It doesn't mean it's bad. It just feels so bad that it's so hard to look at these decks and be like, Well, I just lost my 6th game in a row with this 51% win rate deck. I guess we'll queue up for the 7th and then hope that my deck's good. No, like, you're going to bench it, you're going to name it as Draven sucks, and then you're going to tweet about it, right? Like, for example, which I saw my friend Austin Yost do, right? Like, that's what people do, right? Because you want to make a meme, flashy headlines, flashy titles, clickbaity things, make people interested. Nobody's going to click on a video titled "As Draven has a 49% win rate." People are going to
watch me stream as Draven and win
half my games. Yeah.
Win 6 out of my 11 matches.
Yeah, no, right? Like, nobody. That's not the thing that gets people's attention. People don't read a tweet and think to themselves, "Wow, what a wonderfully balanced deck." When you read the tweet that is like, "I played a Zero Aurelia today and went 13-12 in Masters. This is my story." No,
I am moderately pleased with the performance of my reasonable deck.
Yes, I have selected and played adequately all day. Right? No, you're gonna like the tweet that's like, just 360 no scoped Thresh Nasus with with spiders all day plus 300 LP.
Yeah,
right?
just
Obviously
10-0 pub stomped the meta. Like,
absolutely right. Like,
100%.
And so it's hard. I guess I want to know, do you guys think that there's like a good solution to this problem? Or do you think that card games in general in the online era are just doomed to have somewhat overrepresented meta shares because these echo chambers are always going to
get talked about? I think that's doomed to happen.
completely doomed.
I think it happened really hard with Magic, and Magic's design hasn't quite caught up yet.
I agree.
They're not quite reactive enough, and that's kind of because, I mean, that's a pitfall of having a paper card game. That's a whole different beast that we don't need to talk about at all.
No, thankfully we don't have that problem here.
Yeah, where we can actually
nerf things.
And just, I don't know, man, don't be so mad about it. like really, like, people get, it's a card game and meta shift and different cards are going to be good. People would nonstop complain about how good Twisted Fate had been for like 3 expansions, which is a little fair. But on the other hand, Nautilus is the most played Bilgewater card right now. So like, you get what you ask for.
True.
It's
true.
So like, metas change and decks aren't going to be good forever. That's fine. Some people have, there's a very specifically small subset of this community that has absolutely ludicrous expectations of this, because Riot said things when the game was coming out, like, we want every card to be playable. We want every champion to have a playable deck. And, this whole article proves that, like,
they're doing a pretty good job.
3% of them have a playable deck on ladder.
73.8%.
Yeah, have a playable deck on ladder. But it's okay that, some Karina Veraza isn't good right now. Like, not every card needs to be good. That's a nonsense thing to ask for.
It's completely impossible.
And so there are going to be some bad cards. There are unfortunately going to be some bad champions.
But it's, I get it. It sucks when you
like
you crafted a deck. It's your favorite deck. You like the champions thing. Like, if you're a Fiora one trick in League of Legends that gets into Legends of Runeterra, crafts a Fiora Shen deck, and you're like, let's go. Yeah. Then it gets nerfed and now it's unplayable. Like, that sucks. I get it. You want to play your Fiora. That's why you like the game. I totally get it. And then, you go on Twitter and you complain about it. I get it. Yeah. It makes sense, right? The problem is that, like, the first person who complains about Fiora isn't a problem. The second person that complains about Fiora isn't a problem. The 150th retweet of "God damn, I hate this Fiora card, please nerf it" is a problem, right? Because
it's like,
when the communities are this vocal about the problems, right? It almost undermines the real problems. Because when people complain about everything, how is Riot supposed to know when there's an actual problem? And I mean, let's be honest, they're good at their job, so they'll probably feel it too. Yeah. But assuming they've done a really good job listening to community feedback, and I think that the meta is great. And if I call as Draven unplayable trash, it doesn't mean I want to buff it, right? It means I'm trying to get people to laugh, have a good time. But like, we do need to address the languages that are used, I think, in general.
I think that hyperbolic language, I don't think there's a solution to, there's no way to get people to stop using it.
No, I'm not going to.
I think the
it's completely impossible.
Yeah.
It will never happen in a million years.
Never. I think it's just that people take it too seriously is the bigger problem.
That's really what it is.
Because at no point, the amount, okay, how many times, anyone listening to this, how many times have you personally used the word literally completely incorrectly?
Every time.
I
can't remember the last time I used it correctly.
It's like I use it incorrectly probably like 75% of the time. Like
which is probably like 6 times a day.
Yeah. Yep.
Like we all use literally a lot.
Oh yeah, so much.
That's certainly true. Yeah,
it contributes a lot to the fact that I think we are some of the most hyperbolic language people.
But I will say that at no point when I hear you or Noble say some nonsense hyperbolic thing, whatever, will I go,
do you take it?
I don't take it seriously.
You don't take it word for word. Not everything is.
Yeah.
Not everything is so literal.
Yeah, exactly.
We're really knocking the word puns out of the park today, guys. Good work.
Yeah. All right. Where were we? Talking about
basically just talking about like basically I just think that hyperbolic language is bound to exist. But try to form your own conclusions. I think like people are going to complain about decks. It's okay to complain about decks you don't like because that's the way that Riot gets feedback for them. If you don't like a deck, it's fine to complain about it. But perhaps maybe take a little bit of a second to think about like, why am I complaining about this deck? Yep. What is the real problem? Formulate the argument just a little bit better. Even the difference between, because like, all right, I'm gonna read you 2 theoretical tweets, and you're gonna tell me which one you think is more likely to have a positive impact on the community. Okay. Number 1, Irelia Azir is giga mega busted. It absolutely shit stomps every deck. It's completely unplayable, uninstalling, period. Number 2 is like, Azir Irelia is really strong. I feel like it inhibits champion diversity by forcing people to play champions and cards
like
that are powerful against its particular abstract plan. Right, like, and that nobody's going to tweet what I just said, right? Like,
no.
Never in a million years. Everybody's going to tweet the first thing. But if they tweeted the second thing, or even something close to it, I don't expect you to
on
go
Reddit,
all,
and we
go
talked
all
about
Webster's on it like I did. But
interesting.
Like, just have any amount of semblance of an argument, and then there's going to be discussion, and discussion leads to more positive changes, and instead of just calling as Draven 49% garbage.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I think the hardest part of every developer's job for every game ever, hey, look, hyperbolic language, is parsing through all of this yelling.
Oh my god,
it's a nightmare.
I can't parse through it.
Yeah, you look at this, and as a developer, you got to be thinking like, oh god, everyone's screaming. Like, what do I do? I imagine
the first week of this Guardians of the Ancient release, like a lot like Millennials and Dogecoin. Like Riot's just sitting there, like looking at the Azir Irelia win rate drop. They were like, hold, hold, please don't go anywhere. Like, please keep right. Like, they're just watching it tank. They're like, no, we're holding. Like, please get better. Please get better. Everyone's complaining. Like,
absolutely.
I just logged on to Twitter and like Mogwai, Swim, Majin Bay all tweeted that they went 10-0 on the deck. Like, oh god, what have we done? Right?
The trend line like dips below 50% for the first time, and it's the scene from the Social Network where they finally get 1 million users, and everyone's like, yeah!
the whole room,
it's a whole
just
party in Riot headquarters. Yeah,
I'm imagining the Riot HQ and just a lot like the scene from The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah. Exactly.
But anyway, I think that it's really interesting. I think that language has a large play in how the meta is. I guess maybe let's take a second and talk about the actual meta. What do you guys think about it right now in general? Like, I'm really happy with it.
I wish there was a deck that was better because then I would be climbing faster.
I wish the busted deck was still busted.
I pretty easily got to I'm Plat 1, 0 LP.
Diamond 1,
that's what I meant. Diamond 1, 0 LP. And I'm trying to get over that last threshold.
The last 5 games are always so hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. Playing against really good decks, lots of master players, lots of people know what's going on.
Everything feels so even and fair.
I know.
I
hate it.
It's nonsense. I keep winning and then losing and then winning, like going 50-50 all the time. I can barely climb.
I am consistently winning the games that I play well and losing the games I punt, and it's infuriating.
I know. Why can't my mistakes...
Let me play 4-mana Lee Sin, you cowards!
Just want to get bailed out. You know?
Yeah, why can't my Burblefish go back to being 5-3s or whatever?
Yeah,
nonsense?
whatever they should be, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Hey,
You're
Riot.
right.
I got a problem. There's no 60% deck. I can't climb easily anymore. Okay, but like, I actually love it. Like,
Those numbers told me that I should just pick up discard aggro and just like crush my way into
I actually think I might
discard
pick up
aggro. I was literally gonna say like discard aggro.
I need something with faster games. I've been winning a lot of games with Thresh Nassus, but they're so slow.
Yeah, Thresh Nassus, I think
That's another thing. The games are so fast.
Yeah.
So he said more games were being played than ever, and someone was like, "Is that because all the games are fast because it's Azirelli on aggro?" And I was like, "That's a fair point." I don't think that that's true. Like, I don't think that that's going to be entirely chalked up. Like, that really undermines like how good of a job Riot's been doing with this expansion.
That's
and like,
true, but it is a good point.
But there's that, and there's also the World's announcement, meaning people are going to, of course, be playing more because there's more stakes now.
Yeah.
So like, it's definitely a confluence of that. It's not that like this was the sickest released ever. Like, the game is steadily growing. This just makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense that more players are playing more games on average, but I would be shocked if the fact that we are playing faster games on average doesn't have an effect to that, right? Like, I mean, the games must be on average faster than they were last season. I mean, what now? The meta went from being 20% TLC to 20% Azarelia. Of course, the games are faster, right? Nobody's playing around Avalanche anymore.
Yeah.
I also keep seeing posts on the subreddit about people complaining that control is non-viable now and every single deck is aggro or mid-range. And I don't think that's a huge problem, but I think that this idea is there's a perception that like the meta is just too fast and nothing slow can exist, and
That's complete nonsense.
yeah, no, it's just
I mean,
I've lost a lot of games to Aurelian Soul. In the last week.
That's what I was
These
gonna say. Like, Radiant Guardian is like putting in work and then casting Aurelian Soul. That's just not. You know, I played a game today where my opponent was playing Mono Fiora, and you want to know the full list of spells I cast in that game? 2 Aurelian Soul, 1 Star Shaping, and 3 Supernova. That's it. Right? Like, we're not...
Wait, really?
Yeah.
You just didn't cast anything till you cast Aurelian Soul? Just like took 3 every turn?
Yeah.
there's no reason. Yeah, that's how
That makes a lot of
That's
sense.
how you win that matchup.
That's how
you
you
just don't play creatures.
Yeah,
Like,
if you're playing as Monofiora, you just don't.
They're not going to like
They can't-
standalone it and
they-
kill you first?
I mean, they can try, but
can-
like... The other thing is that, like, they oftentimes just, like, pass to, like, waste your mana. Or whatever.
That's
And,
the
like,
thing.
you can't do that in that matchup. Like, a lot of the time they, like, you really do when you're playing Mono Fiora have to play Fiora on 3, hit them for 3. On turn 5, they're still not going to have played a unit. You have to hit them for a few. And then they're probably going to play, like, a Screeching Dragon or something and make you use a couple cards, right? But, like, you know, the goal is basically to just play enough cards to, like, let every Fiora eat 2 or 3 of your creatures and then Supernova it, right? Because, like, they just have 0, like, at least the, like, Demacia, Freljord, or whatever, the most popular ones, have solid 0 answers to to that card. But
I've played way too much of this. I will say this deck is terrible, by the way. I'm not gonna. Monofiora is
complete garbage.
I'm not
wildly unplayable.
That's an over 50% win rate.
Yeah.
I'm
I don't know how. I'm at a loss. I don't know how else to describe a deck. I don't have any mild vernacular.
That deck is not particularly well positioned, and maybe you shouldn't queue it up for ladder right now.
These takes suck.
I know fun to listen to.
These aren't the piping hot takes people want to hear.
Okay, I am actually serious. I think that's.
That deck is equivalent to putting it. Here's what I'll say. That deck is equivalent to putting it all on red. Sometimes it will go well, but 51% of the time it won't.
All right.
And the reason I think it's actually terrible is because what you just said, people don't get that the deck's win con. There are 3 creatures.
That's it.
In the deck.
You can't win.
3 copies of Fiora.
It's a 3-power, 3-drop.
On turn, that game I was saying, my opponent played Fiora on 3, and then like entreat on turn like 5 and 6.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, he's got 3 Fioras in his hand. All right.
Yeah.
Let's see how this goes. See if you can beat dragons.
To beat this deck, all you have to do
don't play them creatures.
is don't play creatures, and people playing the deck stop dry passing.
Yeah, you have
because
to
you'll lose.
No.
Because when you have the attack token and you click the pass button,
guess what?
If your opponent has brain cells and has seen the deck before,
and is playing a 50% win rate deck,
they will also click pass.
The amount of hyperbole in this episode about how we should maybe use less hyperbole
Unmatched.
is
it will never be surpassed.
Yeah, absolutely not.
This is actually so much fun, by the way.
It's a really good time.
Okay. So the meta, I think, is really healthy. I think Thresh Nasus is really fun, very well positioned, and I've been laddering with it a lot. But I actually think that we might be right at the tipping point of the iceberg where maybe you should start playing something else because there's a lot of Thresh Nasus. So honestly, I think my best recommendation for ladder is these Asol decks. And this is like a dry recommendation. I haven't played a lot with them. This is literally this morning I was playing Thresh Nasus, and then I played with Noble on stream for a while, and we went 7-7 or something, and then we're like,
You used literally properly.
Yeah.
oh yeah, it was literally this morning. Great.
Hey, look at that.
I didn't even hear myself say it.
Exactly.
It's
insidious.
It's so deep. Don't
is
even know.
ingrained.
Vernacular, yeah.
Don't even know. And then I was like, maybe it's feels like there's a lot of people that are prepared for Thresh Nasus now, and they've taken a little bit of the Azurelia cards out, but there's still a lot of Thresh Nasus, so I still would probably not play Azurelia.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're still playing Azurelia, the deck's still great. You can just keep crushing people. If you're crushing people, go for it.
You're gonna win 53% of your games.
Yeah. But I do think that that Asol deck seems really well positioned.
Yeah.
Which also might be the last song for Ezra's Draven. The Titanic might be sinking on that deck
Because it can't be the Asol deck.
I don't know how it ever wins that matchup.
Yeah, me either, man. Me either.
I mean,
I don't know how it ever wins any matchup. That deck sucks.
I do know in theory how it wins, and it out aggroes them. But then I see all these Radiant Guardians, and I just laugh maniacally as I think about my Draven opponent trying to Static Shock my Radiant Guardian down or whatever.
Yeah. It's not spoiler word.
There's only 2 Scorched Earths. They need a lot more in that matchup.
I think they have 3 now.
Some of them have been playing. I've seen 2 in most lists.
Still think 3 is wrong. Maybe if the meta takes a very wild shift, but I still
right now it is right. If you're expecting to play against Azurelia, and Thresh Nasus, it's your best card in both of those matchups.
I feel like
Isn't Culling Strike better for
Maybe.
Culling Strike.
I'd
is
rather
better.
have 3 Culling Strike against
You
those
just
two
need to
decks.
kill Nasus. If you do not have literal Scorchers for Nasus, I used literally right. You can't beat it. Not always. Sometimes you can double Ravenous Flock it after a block or whatever. But that is the most important card there, and it also kills Emperor's Dais.
Yep. Scorched Earth is really good in the Thresh.
That's right. It does kill landmarks. That is actually.
That's a very, very important card of why that card is good against Azurelia.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That being said, I just think the card is I just don't think you can play 3 of that card. I agree that it is
so important.
It's clearly the best card in the Thresh Nasus matchup. Outside of your champions, I actually think Draven's probably better. But regardless,
really, I guess it just makes a bunch of.
It's just the engine, and it's hard for that deck to kill.
Yeah,
outside of Black Sphere, but you do need some number of Scorched Earth to deal with Nasus. But I feel like the card you're going to put in that spot in the Azurelia matchup is probably the 3rd Static Shock, which I think is better. And then you're probably the card's just a little bit too bad in some other matchups I just don't think you can afford to put 3 in your deck. Or you're going to give up a little too much to just the field by trying to tech that. Though I would maybe play 3 in tournaments.
Something I do want to say that I kind of really wish was possible in this game, but isn't, is to play a no ban list tournament, like all of the cards that have been released at the best they were.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
Wait, no bans unnerf everything?
That's what I mean, because no ban list is the magic word for
Got
that,
it.
which I shouldn't have said. But basically,
ban list is a poor
I want to
analogy.
play best TF Fizz,
We wanna play the
best
highest
Go
power.
Hard, best Feel the Rush, 4-mana Lee
You want to play
Sin.
the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
You want to
Hall
play
of Fame.
Rocket Tag.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see if we then if you reset the whole system and started there, what would be the best there? If you put every card back to what they'd been on release, or
their best version.
Yeah, their best version, right now, and you like kind of release people into the wild. A lot of crazy stuff would happen, and it would settle, and then you would need to adjust things. And I think after a couple months of adjustment, we would end up at a different place than we are now, which is interesting, right? Because of the way it plays out. Like we're saying right now that like if these cards had come out into TF Fizz instead of the other Shurima cards that came out into TF Fizz, if Azarelia existed then it might not have been a problem. Like that deck might not have gotten nerfed as much or as hard because the new deck that came out had a good matchup against it, and that would like resettle the meta in a different way.
Yeah, really interesting. So
I guess we could proxy the cards.
No.
On cards in our write them down.
I think you just need the Hall of Fame. You just need we need to make the Hall of Fame.
This is doable on like a PBE thing. They could actually do this if they wanted to.
I wouldn't be shocked if we end up with like a lab that is basically this.
I actually
Hearthstone did that.
I don't think that's actually a bad idea for like if you ever get to a point in this game or any game where you like things are really hard to navigate balance and design wise. That's not actually like a horrible nuclear option. Like blow up the world, reset. Like
That's basically what Hearthstone did.
I'm like trying to think. I'm like over here thinking about like if unnerfed Thresh Nasus would have been better than like unnerfed Aphelios. I think the answer to that question is no, but like maybe it'd been really good against TF Fizz, like Fiora, like who knows?
Who knows? Okay, without further ado, I think it's time to get into our question of the week for this week.
This is a really good one.
This is going to be a good one. So I think we're going to have a lot to talk about with this one too. This question comes from Emma Kayla in the Discord. They ask, what do you think are the most important goals for a tournament format?
So this was about
a context with a link to another article
on Reddit as well.
On Reddit that was written by, I forget the name, Morpidorp, who's a writer for Runeterra CCG, about basically how the community has not super settled on a full-on tournament lineup, and it's discussing what you want out of a tournament lineup, how to get it, and like what the best options are. I think it's actually really interesting. So, I mean, I think we should start with what do you want out of a tournament lineup? What do you think are the most important goals for a tournament format?
A clear leveraging player skill as effectively as possible.
That's I agree.
Preparation or skill or both?
Are
we talking about game? Are we trying to make the games interesting, or are we trying to make the lineup construction / deck building, deck selection interesting?
Definitely lean more towards the playing of the actual games, but like preparation's always going to be important. The deck you
bring is always going to matter a lot.
There's no, I don't think there's a tournament format that exists that you can conceive of where preparation isn't incredibly important, right?
That's true, but like there are tournament formats you could design where they incentivize finding the best way to use the cards of like finding the best combination of decks, not necessarily playing the best. Like, for example, 2 seasonal tournaments ago, like realizing that Aphelios Tom Kench was as playable as Aphelios Twisted Fate, and then getting to play Fizz Twisted Fate as well.
I see what you mean.
Like that, like those like small. For example, if all the decks have polarized matchups, then matchup selection is a lot more important than playing the actual games. So like which decks you bring and how they attack the meta is more important than how you actually play the games. Whereas in this format that we're currently at, where there are a bunch of decks with like a 52% win rate that have like pretty even matchups against each other, like then it's play skill.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that I feel like basically my only criteria for what a good tournament format is that it should be the format that means that the better player will win more often. So, obviously there's no metric for who a better player is, at least not really in this game. I guess we can potentially
you
assume
can make claims.
You can make claims, but we don't have much
play
data.
Better, perhaps not the better player, but the person who plays the games better.
Yeah, sure. The person who plays better, the person who has a better aggregate prep and play skill thing, whatever it is. Like, I want the player who theoretically should win to win most of the time. And how do you get that is really the question. It's like, and then there's also some factors that matter for a lot of people, like diversity. How, like, is the tournament experience fun? That matters a lot, obviously, but I can't really imagine a tournament experience that wouldn't be fun. So
yeah, to give a little bit of context, some of the things that this article, the author of this article prioritizes, one of them is player expression.
And that means like getting to play pet decks, basically, I think.
Yeah, but
or decks that you like not being shoehorned into playing.
Yeah,
decks.
I think their point was the certain formats do not allow you to play two, like if your two favorite decks both had the same champion in it, one of the same champion, you can't play those two decks together.
Correct.
Or if both of your two favorite decks were both the same region combination, you can't play those two decks together. And that was something that
which is true for me because like I love Aurelia Azir and I also love Zillion Karma. So
Zillion Karma has to be the absolute worst deck you could ever play.
I mean, you laugh, and I'm thinking
you're trying to find one.
like I'm struggling.
Yeah, it's like just a little worse than Deep.
So it has like a 47% win rate, 48%.
Yeah, probably something like that. So yeah, that like player expression thing, it seems a little bit odd to me. And I mean, maybe I'm really just a spike, but I don't really care if you can play your pet deck in the tournament.
In my tournament. How dare you?
I don't. If your pet deck is bad, then
and
don't
you play it and you lose. Like that's not the tournament format's fault.
I feel like if you're trying to create a tournament format where somebody can intentionally play a bad deck that they like,
and win
and win more, that you've missed the mark. Like I think that like this is a tournament. Like you should, if you do not show up with and obviously, you know, we're going back to this 49% win rate thing a lot, but like, you know, you can show up with a 49% win rate deck and play it well, but like, you know, if you're showing up with a bad deck because you like it and winning a lot more in one tournament format versus another tournament format, I feel like you've missed the mark in the one that you're winning on. Like, I feel like you should not be winning more with bad decks.
Yeah. And so this article talked about a bunch of different things, and they called them all different thing locks. And it's basically a limit to how many things you can play. It's like you can't play duplicate champions, which is like the kind of the most broad one. You can't play Azir in multiple decks. And also no region combinations. There's no duplicate regions, which is the original format of this deck, which meant that it really limited what you could play, because if you look, there were only 6 regions and you were bringing 3 decks. So if your first deck was Ionia Freljord and your second deck was Shadow Isles Demacia, your last deck had to be Piltover and Zon Noxus. Right. Yeah. And I just accidentally said like 3 decks that were actually pretty good, probably. But
it had to be, right?
Yeah,
you know,
but like it really like locks, like each time you take 2 regions out and you're like, this is the deck I'm playing, it drastically limits the remaining decks you can
forced you into playing like at least one combination.
Yeah. But there's also something that such as too much. Like I don't want 3 decks with no restrictions besides them not being basically exactly the same.
Yeah. So I guess let's talk about real quick about like what so for the most part, I think everyone in the LOR community has agreed on a couple things. One, they do not want a single deck format. There was like a survey that went out and it was very unpopular. The idea was very unpopular. I think it was like, I don't remember the exact numbers, but to my memory, it was sub 10% of LOR players wanted a tournament format that consisted of where you only bring one deck.
Wow, that is awesome.
Very unpopular, yeah. So straight up, like we can just rule that out. People don't want to play that format.
No, I don't either.
Right. And that did include sideboard options.
To be fair, another thing that this article talks about a lot is there needing to be a unified tournament. And I actually don't think that's true. I think that if a like Giant Slayer LOR that's running these fight nights wants to do something different, like that's cool and interesting. Like one of the best things about Magic the Gathering that has made it such a mainstay for so long is that there's a ton of different formats, and there's also a lot of different competitive formats. Yeah. You know, and that'll come with time. And I agree that we kind of need to agree on that, and we can change like what cards are legal, what sets are legal, all that noise. But I think that's important to note, and I wouldn't mind if eventually, you know, one of the things that we're doing is playing like these, you know, fun like 1K tournaments that are like bring a deck and just like kind of see what happens.
Yeah, for what it's
I do think that it is important to maintain consistency within a given circuit. Like if your primary tournament circuit doesn't contain consistency, I do think that's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, so,
like I think it's totally okay if like community tournaments everywhere do random different things.
Oh yeah, do
that's
ban
fine.
cards, make fun
Like,
brew nights,
when
whatever.
you got all your seasonals and then worlds should probably have the same
they
format.
should absolutely all.
You know, like
They didn't do that with Magic. You think that was a problem?
For what I actually was about to say, they do this with Magic. Every single format has. You bring a 60+ card constructed card deck.
I see what you mean.
You play a best of 3, and you have a 15 card sideboard.
Oh yeah, none of them are EDH.
None of them are different.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. The card.
That's
pool
not
changes.
true. Half of the tournaments are limited. Like half of the physical tournament you're playing is limited.
All right. Well, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
There are
like half of them are Expedition.
Every constructed format is the same.
Yes, but like there are limited tournaments and constructed tournaments, and then the big tournaments are limited and constructed. Like,
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
There are different formats. So,
but that constructed argument is good, and like we're trying to figure out what we want that to be.
Yeah,
not
basically.
whether we want to be playing
Modern
with all
or
the cards or
standard
just the recent cards or only 5 of the regions. Like we're not trying to figure that out right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
okay, that's fair.
So real quick, back to the things people agreed upon. So people don't want one deck format. They're off that, regardless of sideboards.
Yeah.
And people do like 3 deck formats. So it's like realistically, we're probably playing a 3 deck format.
Yeah.
No
I agree
matter
with
what we
that,
agree on.
for what it's worth.
I also, one of the things that I wanted to bring up, I watched, there was a tournament, I think it might have been before the first seasonal, that was like a 9 deck format, and it was teams of like 3 people, and they brought 9 different decks, and obviously it wasn't region locked.
It had some weird restrictions.
It had some very weird restrictions. You couldn't play the same champions, I don't think.
Correct.
And it led to some really weird decks that were like, there was random, there was a random deep sitting there, or Tom Rocca sitting there that they never intended to play, but they made their opponent ban if it was like good against like 7 of their 9 decks or whatever the hell.
It was a really weird.
Yeah. It was kind of like the way the League of Legends competitive format works. Like they were banning each other's decks and then picking what to play, and then their opponent was picking the deck. Like they didn't pick the deck secretly. It was like, I ban, you ban, I ban, you ban. You pick your deck. I pick out of my last 7 decks what deck to play. So it was really weird. And it's way too much work. 9 decks was a nightmare for the casters.
Yeah, that
they were
format.
trying to talk about the weird decks and all the stuff. We were trying to look at results from that format, and it was a nightmare.
There was like, I distinctly remember looking at like a spreadsheet for what.
Yeah, it was just like an Excel sheet.
It was like an Excel sheet for like what each nation, and it was like nations too. It was like the German team brought these 9 decks. I'm looking at this like MF Sejuani deck. And I'm I bet that 0 of the players on this team have played a single game with this deck on ladder. Like it was just like an absolute pile of bad cards, and I was like, I mean, I guess it's might be good against Lee Sin. I don't know. You know,
That's actually a great example of something that like I think that so part of this article wants more player expression, and what I think about when I hear that is they want more possible deck diversity, and that's okay in theory, but I think when you try and implement rules that force diversity in certain ways, you're gonna have people trying to game the system in a sense. Like they're trying to find. So if you impose all these bizarre limitations to a tournament format, a lot of work is suddenly going to be devoted to, instead of finding 3 solid decks that you like and playing them well, a lot of work is then going to be diverted to instead finding a weird way to efficiently cheat a certain aspect or a certain limitation in the system so that a particular limitation won't affect you as much as it will affect others. You'll find a way to find this specific champ combo or region combo that like makes your lineup suck less instead of being better.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess let's talk about what the potential. So realistically, I mean, there are 4 potential tournament modes that are like methods that are brought up in this article, and let me know if you guys can think of any other ones that are reasonable, because
9 decks, 3 players on a team, baby.
Okay, so aside from this like weird teams format, right? Like, if you guys can think of anything else that like is potentially viable, I'd love to hear it. But real quick, here are the ones that he went over. They are Region Lock, which we said briefly was the very first format, and pretty much everyone agreed that this one was bad. I think like it was the first format that Riot tried. It got pretty negative feedback, and they just immediately mucked it.
With more regions, it might be a little better, but it's still kind of annoying that you can't play like a Lee Zoe deck and a Azarelia. They're very different decks.
Yeah, exactly. You should be able to play both of those decks. So I think that everyone has correctly realized that one is old, outdated, and isn't the best one. The Champion Lock, or which he refers to as Riot Lock, is basically the seasonal tournament format.
Yeah, that's what
it's got all the seasonal tournament rules. You can't bring duplicate champions. You can't bring exact duplicate regions.
And you can't have 2 decks with no champions, which is kind of a weird and easy to circumvent rule. Because like if the best deck is mono Shadow Isles champless, like you can just like play a champless one, a one with 1 Callista, and one with 1 Elise, and it like doesn't matter.
Yeah, and you can play one with like exactly. Yeah. So and which is addressed by the next method that he describes, which is card lock. And there's actually a couple interesting merits to this one, and I would love to get your guys' takes on whether this one is good. But basically, this one, so the champion lock one basically has the limitation of you can't play duplicate regions, and you can't play the same champion in different decks. This one extends that you can't play champions in different decks to every card.
Yeah.
So if you are playing, let's say, Azir Irelia and Lee Sin Zoe, you can only put Syncopation in one of your decks. You can only put Deny in one of your decks. You can only put, I guess
with
that's
these
probably
two,
about
it doesn't
the
work
only
that
cards.
much.
Yeah, it doesn't work that much. So maybe there's a better example somewhere.
Well, those are examples of 2 Ionia decks that you would get to play in this type of thing.
Yeah. But so let's take a look at you wouldn't be able to
play 2 PNZ decks because you could only put Mystic Shot in one of them, and that's
or
whatever.
Correct.
Yeah.
You can't play Thresh Nasus and Endure aggro. Or
and you can't
you can only put Vile Feast in Thresh Nasus or Deep. You probably can't play both of those, right? That one's really interesting.
I do think that's true. Yeah, I do think this is interesting. It keeps people from, like, a lot of my lineups have boiled down to, we're playing 3 decks that are good against aggro. That's because 2 of them have Withering Wail and 1 of them has Mystic Shot.
Yeah.
I think this is interesting. However, we're coming back to the thing I said about a little over restricting things a bit, in that I think a lot of energy in this format would be devoted to finding the best way to make your deck as uninhibited as part,
I can't play 2 Deny decks. I'll play a Deny deck, a Rite of Negation deck, and Spiders.
Which 2 decks are the least screwed over by this extra limitation, instead of which 3 decks are just generally good, I feel comfortable on, and are very good.
Just another thing. I just don't want to make people play weird decks that are only exist for the tournament.
This really forces you to play decks in your lineup that you would not play in ladder.
Yeah, if you're I think that's a very succinct way of putting it. Don't force people to play things they would never normally play.
Yeah, so this was a bad thing about a Magic format that was called Block Constructed, where you played with only the most recently released set of cards, because there were this was not a thing people were playing on the online client. This was not a format people were playing in their local game stores. The format was just nonsense. And so watching the coverage was really awful because the decks didn't matter. It was only for that exact tournament. Was that format a thing that anyone thought about? And that's kind of cool in retrospect, looking back. This is the only time they played. This is the only time this random
block,
random epic Sphinx was good or whatever. I just used that LOR rarity word so that people got it. So it was a little weird. But and that is kind of cool. It's randomly this is really good in this format. But I don't think that's desirable for the consistent competitive format.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because that's a format where it's easy to make format. Well, maybe not easy, but it's possible to design a tournament structure that is going to reward players who build the best decks as opposed to players who play the decks the best.
Yeah.
And I feel like there should be a happy marriage between those two things.
Yeah. And I every time I think about interesting lineups and what they would look like. Every time I felt like my decisions are very interesting. There are many possible things I could do, and I'm happy with the work. Well, not always happy with our conclusions. in retrospect, but like, happy with where we got there and why we did that.
I feel like, there's a large part of me that just wants to be like, I just want my tournament format to be whoever plays the best, because I feel like that would give me a much larger edge, because I suck at building decks.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want my tournament. I would suck at a game whose tournament format was largely decided by who built the best deck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm much better at net decking decks and then playing matchups I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
So I feel like, my theoretical highest win rate, but like, I don't think that's necessarily healthy. Like I'm not the only player, and that's not the only angle with which you can gain an advantage. The people who are creative deck builders should be able to gain advantages by bringing crafty decks like Aphelios Tom Kench or whatever, right?
Yeah. Or Fiora Aphelios.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Even though we did that and it didn't give us an edge.
Well, hey, you don't know that.
I do think that there is a happy medium between being a good deck builder and being a good player, but I do think it should lean more towards being a good player. I think that the moment a player is forced to bring out 4 giant whiteboards and make a massive flow chart spanning all 4 about how to construct their lineup because of bizarre intricate
restrictions. Yeah.
Yeah,
it was fun, but like,
fun.
It's super fun.
But like,
only
also
if you
one person
really
sitting
into
at their
that.
computer should be able to like think through it and not get totally
you
overwhelmed.
shouldn't have to buy a whiteboard to bring a seasonal lineup.
It's a barrier to entry that we don't need.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to think this hard about either gaming the system or circumventing it, or just having to think this hard in general. Like, you should be able to just bring a few decks that exist that are reasonable.
We've talked about this before, but things like Vile Feast are just like staples of archetypes.
Yeah, it's okay.
Game.
Yeah.
And like the card's just decent. Like if you're playing a deck that's good against bad against Vile Feast, like, oh no, like
so basically, I don't know.
It's self-correcting too, because it's self-correcting because if everybody's playing a Mystic Shot deck, you can just play the decks that are good against Mystic Shot decks, and then it fixes the problem.
Yeah, the example this person used was they wanted to make the ban phase more impactful by being able to not just ban champions but ban cards. So
like banning Hush.
Fair, because exactly. There are a lot of cards that are like specific cards that are good against strategies. Hush stands out.
Eclipse Dragon. Yikes.
Yeah. And Avalanche, right? Like you can ban the Avalanche deck, right?
The
like
Withering Whale deck.
You can ban the Withering Whale deck. Right?
And this sounds nice in theory, but I mean, at a certain point, like if you're bringing 3 decks that just can't beat one card, you probably deserve to lose to that card a little bit, right? Like, that's the counter argument.
I also
there.
feel like this format, so like if you're able to ban particular cards, right? Like it feels like you should be able to exploit that. Like if I can ban the Avalanche deck, right? I will never have to play against Avalanche, right? Having the idea that people can bring 2 similar decks that have relatively similar matchups.
Yeah,
very much means that you can select decks to attack, target them, right? Like in the current format, right? I don't think you could do that in this format, or not nearly as effectively. At least it feels like I could bring.
I mean, that would mean there's more diversity, right? If that's harder to do,
it would mean there's more diversity, but it also means that potentially you could just bring 3 aggro decks that don't share cards. So we're bringing like spiders, maybe a different Noxus aggro deck that. Had to play a couple suboptimal 1-drops or whatever, and then like discard aggro.
And
whatever.
also,
like we're gonna have to make modifications ourselves. But like, it feels like I might be able to bring 2 toughness tribal instead of, and then just like, okay, well, I'll be playing against Withering Whales and Vile Feasts all day. I'll just put all the X2s, aggressive X2s in my deck instead of the X1s and ban Avalanche.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I mean, that seems like I've never even played this format, and I'm already like. That seems like a pretty easily game this, right? Like
another thing is like I can't think of a lineup that I've brought that this change would substantially affect.
Yeah.
Like the last lineup, it's Vile Feast that is in both TLC and Thresh Nasus. I don't think there's other card overlap.
Yeah,
but it would like annoyingly not be able to make me play like random Vengeances that I probably
wouldn't. I probably just like wouldn't be able to play both TLC and Thresh Nasus with Vile Feast not being able to go in both decks, which I guess is the point.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
I just don't think it's a good point.
Yeah. I think that's the goal of this format, but I'm not sure I'm into it. It's basically. And then the last one he suggested was Collection Lock, which was card lock, the same rules as card lock, except you can play any card up to 3.
Yeah.
So you as long as there's a 3 total in your lineup. So you can play one Thresh Nasus deck with 3 Vile Feast and 1 TLC deck with 0, or you can play Thresh Nasus with 2, TLC with 1, any combination thereof.
Exactly. Basically. You can put 1 Hush in each of your 3 decks.
Correct. Yeah.
As long as it totals 3 across all 3 decks, you're fine.
You're good. Yeah. I feel like this just doesn't do anything different than the other one. The only cards that this affects are the like big bomby cards that you aren't going to put more than one of in any deck. Like he used Captain Farron as an example, and to be honest, I'm even struggling to come up with another card.
Maybe like
where this
maybe so you can split Hushes 2 and 1. Like you can shave a Hush from 2 and 2 down to 2 and 1.
Yeah, and then like that's just doesn't do anything because at that point, like
now I'm just playing a slightly shittier version of my other deck. I don't
exactly. It can also because you see deck lists, you know it's in the deck, so you suddenly it doesn't affect your play that much because you still have to respect the card to a certain degree.
How much differently are you going to play if this Thresh Nasus deck has 2 Vile Feast instead of 3? None. No amount different, right? It just means your opponent had to bring 1 card worse that they didn't.
Unless you see both copies of Vile Feast.
Yeah,
but exactly. And
like,
that's it.
That's it, right? Like, it's not that this can't and won't impact games. It's just that I feel like it's not meaningfully different from the previous version. And shares all of the same flaws as the previous version.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of the card lock and the collection lock are kind of just solutions to a non-existent problem.
Yeah, I really kind of agree. I guess, I don't know. I'm glad we had this conversation because, to be honest, I didn't know where I was going to land on this topic until we had the conversation. But now that we've had the conversation, I'm pretty happy. Like, I think our format is good. I think the seasonal format is good. I think it encourages diversity. It rewards people who bring weird decks that attack the meta correctly. It rewards people for building good decks. It rewards people for playing well.
And honestly, I kind of like that if Go Hard is running rampant, this was an example that I'm pirating from the article, I can play 3 decks that have 3 Nopify in them.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's probably a good balance on the deck Go Hard.
Yeah, if you want to...
Or TF is, and they can play 3 Stony Suppressor.
Right, like it feels like if you want to commit your entire lineup to beating something, God damn it, I should be able to do it, right? Like, like this, it feels like it has the most actual diversity because I can employ not necessarily different decks, but different strategies. It feels like if you're limiting, the more limitations you put on the decks people can bring, the more you're going to see more different decks, but you're going to see less interesting strategies behind them, I think. And I really like the strategies behind these lineups. I think they're really interesting. So, all right. Do you guys have anything else you want to add to the tournament mode in general? Do you want to address the fact that people are playing different tournaments or that we need to address? Regardless, I think we do need to establish a general consistent tournament structure, but I think that we're moving in that direction, and the one we have is good.
Yeah, I agree. I think the one we have is like a very, very good balance of all of the important aspects, representation of player skill, thought going into a lineup, thought going into deck construction.
The ban phase has still felt pretty impactful.
Yeah, and the ban phase is also very impactful, I think.
Yeah, I think that we could easily design a format where the ban phase is more impactful, but I don't want to.
Exactly.
I think that the ban is impactful in
right
every match,
amount of impactful.
But at the end of the day, most of the match comes down to the decks you brought versus your opponent's decks and who plays better in the games.
Yeah, I think
that's how it should be.
And I don't think this person is like totally wrong. I just kind of disagree with the take.
I don't hate their takes.
I want all the limitations in a given tournament format to be impactful, not like exploitable.
Yeah, I never want to feel bad about having to play a certain thing or cards or deck because like the format makes me the more restrictions you put on it, the more likely you are to end up at the end of the day like looking at your third deck and being like, man, all my options suck.
Or
for whatever reason.
Or someone deep diving on all the possibilities and solving the format.
That's way worse. Yeah, that's even worse.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I can play Fiora, Mono Sparklefly, and Lee Zed because I can never play against Hush. Yeah. And then it's just like really...
Yeah, someone could figure out the quote-unquote perfect lineup that can't really lose to anything realistically given the restrictions in the format. And that's not something anyone wants.
That's scary, yeah. I mean, it obviously requires a lot of things to go wrong.
It's always interesting with tournaments, I just want to say, because like you could theoretically, if you knew the meta going in, construct a lineup that was very, very favored, the best lineup for that tournament. But then if you run into a person who was one level further than you and was like, oh, they just happened to bring this suite of decks that other people didn't bring, and they just crush you.
And you just get rolled. Yeah, that absolutely happened. Okay. I suppose let's move on to our other listener questions of the week. So thank you very much to Michaela for that absolute banger. This one comes from Sna Info Blah. They ask, what do you think about nerfing Matron to cost more? 9-mana Spectral Matrons? Are you guys into this?
It just doesn't feel necessary to me.
I
That card is not a card that I look at in this meta and I'm like, that's the problem.
it has probably one of, if not the most like exploitable effects of any card in the game, but the degrees to which it's being exploited, as we can see from the data,
They're not that bad.
they're not that bad. Like, that's not like, I get that it feels bad when you lose to it because it feels unfair what it's doing. But at the end of the day, it's not destroying the metagame. It's not oppressing it. It's not completely taking over anything. It's winning games at a reasonable rate.
That what you said that that Matron Cythria deck has like a 52% win rate, you said? Something like that?
Wasn't in here.
Oh, it wasn't in there? Okay. I thought I saw somewhere that this Matron, Champless Matron Cythria deck was like had like above a 50% win rate or something.
The deck seems good.
It was like doing pretty well, and like honestly, like that's sick. I have no desire to nerf that deck. That deck is doing some weird stuff, and
it's not even in the meta report.
Not even in the meta report. Okay, well, I'm unsure where I saw this data, and it might be completely wrong. So take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Here, but like, even if that deck is at a minimum, the deck is playable, right? Like it's probably at least got a 49% win rate. Let's be honest. So like, you know, if it's got a 49% win rate or higher, that this can have like upwards of, even if it has like a 52% win rate, that's really good. Let's say it's probably not that high, but I have no desire to nerf this deck. It's doing a really sweet thing. It's way different from what the rest of the world is trying to do. Like, it's a cool deck. Matron does some degenerate things sometimes, and it's been a problem in the past with TLC. It's been, you know, I guess you could cite it as the problem card in this deck because it is. Right, it's the only reason this deck can function. Let's be honest. This deck would never exist if Matron wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
So maybe that is an issue, but like I feel like it's enabling interesting strategies. TLC was really good, and I don't think Matron was. Matron was a big part of the problem in that deck too. But like, it didn't feel like it kind of feels like Matron might be dying for other cards' sins at this point.
But also, if Matron didn't exist, that deck would never do that thing.
Yeah, that deck. Well, I mean, TLC would have just been bad. So
it would have been different. I think that. Yeah. I mean, people played versions with the Thralls where it's trying to like summon one Thrall in an Ice Pillar.
Yeah, I think people just would have kept playing Field Rush if Matron didn't exist, to be honest.
That's fair.
I mean, I think we just would have been in a very different world.
Yeah.
So I have no desire to nerf this card. That's where I land. That's where I land on that. But if I was going to nerf it, I would nerf the stats, not its mana cost. Interesting take.
Same. I would
get rid of Fearsome. Maybe something like that.
Does it have Fearsome?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that like just 2 Matrons.
Yeah, sometimes
like
you just kill people.
Power that sometimes you just can't.
I didn't actually. I don't remember that.
I almost. I queued up one game of TLC today on stream. I switched to my account after we were playing after Noble had to go. I was like, all right, chat. Like, what do you think about the LP gamble? How about I queue up one game of TLC and just see if we flip the LP? Well, I will flip the LP coin, right? You know, see if we queue into Azarelia. Oh well, maybe we'll hit. You know, like spiders or something, and we can't lose, right? And of course, I hit a Zero Irelia. Almost won. I was so close to winning because of the Spectral Matron's Fearsome. But I punted and lost. So I would have won.
It was like a pretty 9-head punt.
Yeah, I would have won if I'd Fading Memories to Kindly Tavern Keeper like 3 combats earlier on like the last turn I died or something. It was pretty nonsense
because of exactly how it played out. Yeah, it was definitely nonsense.
So like, you know, I lost, but I was if I'd got to untap, I would have Matron to Matron and just been able to attack through it because he couldn't block for lethal. So, it doesn't not matter. I don't know. All right, our next question comes from Carinal. They ask, all right, bit of a mouthful. Apologies in advance. While a lot of people find the Watcher Matron part to be the biggest issue with the deck, part of the reason that TLC's matchups are so extremely binary are the additions to the SI Freljord package that essentially quadrupled down on their already good aggro matchups. See Anivia/Feel the Rush having a 42 to 35% win rate versus various aggro against the 30% TLC currently dominates it at, and it's abysmal Azir Irelia matchup. So basically, are Blighted Ravine, Ice Shard a bit overtuned and need adjustment? Or are we just accepting that the future of SI Freljord control is to just have extremely lopsided matchups, both positively and negatively?
Yeah, so I actually really like this question. This is a really good way to think about this problem.
It's very well thought out, I think.
Yeah, because
it is a mouthful, but I like how it was phrased.
It's definitely true that amount of extra board clears, they're good in multiples because the second one kills the third toughness thing or whatever.
Yep.
And it makes them so that they always have at least something. And it can be really frustrating to play
between
against.
Ice Shard, Blighted Ravine, Avalanche, your aggro deck, your aggro deck, and they're playing the box now, most of them. Your aggro deck is going to have to beat a sweeper, probably two of them. Can your aggro deck beat a sweeper or two of them? The answer for most of these decks is no.
Maybe three of them too.
Maybe.
We listed 5 cards the deck's playing at least two of. That's a fourth of the deck or more.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. On average, you're probably going to have to beat 2 or 3 sweepers every game you play against TLC.
Yeah.
I don't know what, obviously Azir Irelia can do that because of the particular, its particular formation. But I really do think that maybe that is a problem. Unless the aggro decks are doing something weird, which would lead them to having a very high win rate against TLC like Azir Irelia, I don't really know how they're supposed to build their deck to be able to beat that, basically.
I mean, the answer is the Demacia ones that are a little bigger.
Yeah, but those decks suck, so...
I think that maybe they do need adjustment, honestly. I don't know what I would do because all of those cards by themselves are just probably fine. Yeah, and it's weird because it's just a critical mass kind of thing.
It really is.
Yeah.
I don't think it's actually that big of an issue. I think the only problem that you could really point at is the fact that Ice Shard is fast with no restrictions. The box is fast, but it can only hit something that entered this turn.
Yeah.
Avalanche is slow. That's its restriction. Blighted Ravine
super slow
is extra slow, but it can activate at the start of a round, but it's also
got
not
some extra text.
Yeah.
And Withering Wail costs more.
And only deals 1 damage. And so Ice Shard is honestly the only one I think I would consider an issue because it's just...
I don't know how I would change it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I don't know how I'd change it. It's only an issue because it can kill so many things so easily, and it doesn't have any downside where you can just sit there and wait for them.
Yeah, it's kind of
finally attack.
It's kind of like Make It Rain.
A little bit.
Remember when 2 mana Make It Rain just made 1 toughness dudes unplayable?
Just completely awful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the card's probably worse, but it does something very similar.
Yeah, I feel like I have no idea how to address this problem.
I don't think it's a problem.
Yeah,
I'm going for.
That's totally fair. It is. I mean, at this point, this is kind of a worrying trend. I mean, this is the third SI Freljord deck that has had these 70% and 30% or worse, or even more polarized matchups in a row. Like the Anivia deck, Feel the Rush had a lot of these matchups. But Feel the Rush was significantly more reasonable. So I guess and then TLC, right?
And War Mothers.
Yeah, actually, honestly. So these decks have always had these polarized matchups, which I mean, maybe honestly that is just fine. That is
what
kind of worrying trend,
decks
but
do.
Maybe that is just what those decks do.
But also there's they who endure aggro. There's also our other options to do.
Yeah, so the reason I don't think this is actually a problem is because it feels terrible as an aggro player queuing into an SI Freljord deck that is tuned to just pub stomp aggro. It's going to feel terrible. You're probably going to lose. But there's a lot of things that deck loses to.
Very true.
And so someone playing it on ladder isn't going to be overly successful unless they happen to hit the sweet spot in the meta where everyone's playing aggro and they're one of the few people on this deck somehow. Like it just doesn't. That's just not really a thing that happens. Like
one thing that is annoying about it is that the mirrors when everyone's deck is just these sweepers. It's like there's not really a way to fix this, but they're so awful. Like you just cast Avalanche onto an empty board on turn 4 with 6 cards in your hand because you know you're going to eventually burn cards, so you need to cast it now.
Yeah, and that's a thing. I mean, that's just another. That does suck. But like you when you're building a deck that's super greedy, super late game, and whose only goal is to just not die for the first 8 turns. Yeah. That's the whole point. The whole point is to not die. And
that's how control mirrors always are.
That's just
And if you were going, for what it's worth, I mean, if you're going to build a deck whose whole entire plan is to not die until turn 8, I mean, like, it's pretty reasonable that deck's going to have polar. Like, I just can't imagine a world where you can construct a deck that has that plan that won't have polarized matchups.
Yeah. So the only reason I ever had a problem with TLC is because usually, like, so with Zombie Anivia, with Feel the Rush, they couldn't as consistently just pick a turn and then you're dead on that turn.
Yeah.
Like that's not how
they had a lot more trouble turning.
Exactly. They needed to see a couple things and they needed to like slowly like get their game plan building up. It wasn't just like turn 8 and turn 8 I do a thing and then turn 9 you're dead.
And
like
give a lot more room for the opponent to squeeze out close games.
Yeah, a TLC just
kills you.
Just insta kills you.
Just immediately douses all hope.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh, it's turn 9, I'm dead. Like, there's no, oh, I'm going to 1, maybe I'll get excited. It's no. You are dead now. Like, you didn't kill me, boom, you're dead. Like, with Anivia, you can not kill them and then be in a bad spot when they have 3 Anivias on the board on turn 10. But, at least you still get to draw a card and take your next
6,
turn, right? Like,
Yeah, you're not instantly dead. And, like, they need to see a small amount of cards it takes a lot longer to see. TLC has so much redundancy in its win con and its answers.
To be fair, I'm glad the games against TLC end instead of continuing on because they're so long.
That is fair.
I don't want that deck to take longer to win.
I get that.
Point.
But I do see what you mean about that Crux turn where there just feels like nothing you can do if they have the things, and it's pretty frustrating. Yeah.
All right, our next question comes from Woohoo. They ask, when you've identified the meta has started to stabilize, what's your best approach to climbing the Masters ladder?
Making it out of diamond. No, sorry. I had to dig at myself a little bit there. I really like to kind of identify like 1 or 2, sometimes 3 decks that I feel like are well positioned against different parts of the metagame, and then kind of play whichever one is against trends, does well against trends that I noticed. The best example, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, is when I was trying to qualify for the first seasonal. I was playing Feel the Rush on ladder. It was going well, and then I played like against 4 Feel the Rush mirrors in a row, switched over to Fiora Shen, and then went like 7-0, beating 3 Feel the Rush decks, right? So like kind of have in your head how you want to attack the meta. Be like, okay, if I see a lot of Thresh Nasses, I want to play like Azul or whatever. Yeah, or maybe TLC. If I see a lot of Azarelia, I want to switch back to Thresh Nassus and kind of read what's going on, keep tracking what people at the top are playing. Because there aren't that many people in Masters. Like, you're going to play against the same people twice, and you're definitely going to play against people playing the same deck multiple times. I played against Majin Bay like twice in a row today, like literally.
Yeah, it just happens. And that was when you were in Diamond and he's in Masters, right? Like,
yeah,
there just aren't that many people playing at any given time that you can queue into at the top of the ladder.
Yeah, totally. And so just kind of being able to read those trends and have those decks that you're comfortable with.
My personal go-to given strategy is to quit punting so many games. That's my number one key to ranking up. Is I frequently notice that when I punt the game in Masters, you usually don't get it punted back to you.
Yeah.
But a real more serious, a little bit more serious answer is that like really you need to be very, very thoughtful about winning every game. The best way to climb Masters is to consistently play good. Because every single time you lose, you're going to lose more LP than you won. So if you have a 50% win rate, you can't climb. So you need to be you basically can't be making consistent mistakes if you're trying to climb ladder. You need to play a lot. You need to have resilient mental, because it is insanely tilting to go 15-5 or 15-6 and end up down 3 LP on a day. It's so frustrating, right? So it's like, it sucks to then queue up the 16th game and be like, okay, like, like I'm gonna play my absolute best this time and put everything into it and make sure you don't lose. Because every time you punt away a game, you toss like at least the next like 3 wins down the drain, right? Like,
it's not quite that bad. It's a little more than 1 win.
Yeah, but like, you're going to have to play the next 2 games or whatever to get your LP back and have.
Oh, yeah. And then if you would have won that game, it's 3. I see what you mean. Yeah, that's like how if you punt on ladder trying to get to Masters or whatever, you lose 40 LP because you just lost the 20 that you're going to win and you are down 20.
Yeah, so it's pretty brutal. When it's stabilized, I really think the best way you can gain advantages is to kind of game the meta just very slightly, like Noble was saying, like
tweaking your decks a little bit.
Tweak your deck a little bit, maybe switch your decks a little bit if you're queuing.
Don't like go off the rails and put like Tom Kench in your deck or anything.
No, don't go crazy. But like, it really is just important to play every game very, very carefully. And the old strategy that works to get to Masters of try and play aggro decks and fast games and you'll get there quicker does not apply anymore. So there's a lot more mid-range and there's a lot more great players. Like the best approach to climbing ladder is to legitimately be a better player. So like that is a long process. It's not easy. You have to put hundreds of hours into being a better player because you can't climb Masters unless you're significantly better or have a significantly better deck than the other players in Masters. And guess what? All the players in Masters are good. Yeah. So it's really hard.
Yeah, I don't try and game the meta at all when I'm in Masters.
That's another reason.
I just don't. I because every game matters so much, and because you need to play pretty much perfectly, like not literally 100% perfectly,
but consistently,
very well consistently. You can't be making bad decisions. You can be making some suboptimal decisions, but you can't be making bad ones.
If you make actively bad decisions, you're going to punt the game, and then you're going to be down a lot of LP.
Yeah, so the deck I always play in Masters is just the one that I really, really, really feel comfortable with. The one where I genuinely feel I can outplay my opponent, even if that's like not actually like, even if my opponent just like is better than me.
Yeah, but you want to feel like you have equity.
Right. If I just like am convinced I can beat them by being good no matter what. The mental is
strong, like the having that mental block away, being like I'm playing well on this deck or whatever is good.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just makes it easier to make each individual game count more often.
Yeah. Yep. And it really is. It's a marathon, not a sprint with Masters. A lot of people, ranking up honestly is a marathon, not a sprint too. But like when you get to Masters, it really starts to feel like
a slog,
quite a slog to gain a lot of LPs. So, all right. We have one more question from Woohoo this week. They ask, can you guys explain when passing to burn mana is a good play? So, yeah, go ahead.
My go-to first answer for this question is when it hurts you. It's not good to do this, right? You would rather spend your mana on your turn. Like, that is almost always better for your deck's plan. So you need to find the times where it is worse for your opponent than it is for you. That's the crux here, is like, it's not going to be like, it'll be good for you when it's really bad for them and not that bad for you.
Yes.
Like we were just talking about when your opponent is on Mono Fiora.
Nah, this is a good one.
And you just keep passing because they can't kill you before you they literally just can't kill you in the attacks before you ace-hole them or invoke a thing that kills their Fiora that they can't stop, right? That's
basically I've got another good example. So in particular, the third turn of the game when you were playing Thresh Nasus is my favorite time to just open pass. I do it almost every game, regardless of whether or not I have Blighted Caretaker, especially against aggro decks, because you have basically you're trying to okay, I'm going to try and use a little bit of poker terminology just very quickly. In poker, the game is largely predicated upon trying to make big plays when you have innate advantages. And that goes a lot into what cards you can and theoretically should have, which goes a lot into theory, which I won't go into. But basically, I think when you're trying to replicate mana, you're trying to represent the same thing. You're trying to put yourself in a situation where the theoretical subset of cards you have in your hand is much better to pass with than the subset of cards your opponent can have. And you can make decisions based on whether or not you think they can or cannot have certain cards. Right, against aggro decks, open passing on turn 3. This is what I'm trying to illustrate. On turn 3, if I pass and my opponent on their aggro deck decides that they can't afford to lose the tempo by passing on turn 3, right? Obviously, if the game goes to turn 6 or 7, I'm playing Thresh Nasus, I'm going to have a big advantage, right? If I can put my champions into play, I'm going to have a big advantage. So a lot of the times, the aggro decks feel like they simply cannot afford to just pass turn 3 back. They have to play cards, and they have to play into your Blighted Caretaker or your Merciless Hunter, right? And that's really the crux here, is that, like, if you pass with the attack token, you just don't attack, literally just pass, like, can your opponent play something, or is it too bad for them if you have it, right? And do you care if you missed 3 points of damage? Let's say our board is a Fading Icon, a Dune Keeper, and a 0/1, right? Or 0/1 Prey.
Yeah.
Okay, on turn 3, we can just pass, right? It means that if my opponent passes back, we're going to miss 5 points of damage.
But I mean, if they have like a 2/2 in play, you're missing 2 points.
Yeah,
of damage.
Exactly. Yeah. But in exchange for that, we're essentially we're guaranteeing that the game is going to just go one turn later. It's just like, boom, nobody gets to play turn 3. We're one turn closer to the window where I'm going to start winning, right? That's where you're trying to find places where no matter what your opponent does, it's bad. So like, boom, okay, I'm passing on turn 3. I'm going to waste all my mana if you pass. That's, whatever. Or another one is like when your opponent hasn't played anything on turns 1 or 2, and on turn 3 you pass, right? Because if you played a 1-drop and a 2-drop, you're going to bank 3 spell mana if they pass back. But if they pass, they waste all of it, right? So their odds are they're going to play something because they don't want to waste all their mana. And then you get to react to that, right? Yeah. So there's actually a lot of instances like little ones like that where it's like I can pass and my opponent won't want to because they burn mana and I don't. And you can almost force your opponent to play first in those situations, and I think it's really good.
That's another good example, and there's one last one that I want to touch on, and that is times where you need to represent a certain card. The most frequent option is the most frequent example is deny.
Rite of Negation, yeah.
Yeah, or Rite of Negation, functionally the same thing.
The 2 counter spells.
I thought you were going to say Avalanche. Weird.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I say Rite of Negation or deny because I'll use the example of the Thresh Nasus mirror. There are going to be a lot of games in that mirror where the moment you go below 4 mana and can no longer play your Rite of Negation, that's when your opponent wins, because that's the moment your opponent can play their atrocity to kill you.
Or when you tap below your atrocity.
Yeah.
That's another thing. It's like
exactly.
Atrocity is another thing that you tap out of.
Yeah, because when you tap below atrocity...
Tap is a magic turn.
When you run out of mana. When you spend enough mana that you cannot cast the spells anymore. Is there an
equivalent?
I don't know. I feel like...
Spend?
I feel like the LOR community uses tap too. Am I crazy?
Well, yeah, but none of the cards tap, so it's weird.
Yeah, maybe
when you go below 4 mana, like we all,
you just can't go below.
There are a lot of times. Yeah, there are a lot of times where you aren't allowed to play cards in your hand because you have to represent things, and then once your opponent drops below a certain mana threshold, then you can as well.
And there's this very weird game of chicken, of like back and forth, of trying to ship priority back and forth until one of you is either forced to go below a certain mana threshold, or they just waste 4 mana or something, some amount of mana.
And eventually, like, one player is going to win the board over time and force the other one to overextend, right?
Exactly.
And this is why cheap units are so good, because playing them is really good. And also, just like attacking for 2 with a random dude is a soft
just
pass.
to pass priority is often really good.
Yep, exactly.
So,
and leaving...
Burst pass, so good.
Yeah, leaving up any amount of mana. This also plays into bluffing a lot. Because even if you don't have Rite of Negation in your hand, if your opponent will lose the game if they get their spell Rite of Negation,
they're not going to play it.
They're not going to play the spell, probably. There are times where your opponent is like, okay, I need to make them have it now.
There's a lot of times where you look at the board and you're like, I just can't play Renation here.
Yeah.
I just can't play Field Rush. I can't play. These are older examples, but like, stuff like that.
There's a lot. Really, it feels like And that's, I think, where a lot of the skill or a lot of skill expression in this game comes from, is acknowledging that you are going to lose this board battle where we both are holding, like, you know, in this battle where we're both holding up this many resources, I am going to lose it in 3 turns, so I can't play it. Like, let's just go nuclear. You know, that is a thing that you have to do sometimes.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
In order to flip that switch, you have to accept that you might lose to some stuff. But like knowing when to flip that switch, I mean, they're more likely to have it in 3 turns.
Exactly, because
sometimes they just don't.
You'll either have a 20% chance to win now, or you have a 0% chance to win in 3 turns.
Yeah,
but believe it's very hard to know when you're going to have a 0% chance to win in 3 turns.
It's true.
And believe it or not, this advice past me could have used. Like, there is an amount of too long that you can hold your atrocity.
Yes. Sometimes I love the games with Thresh Nasus. Every single time I'm sitting there, it's like my Nasus is at 16. Like my opponent's at, you know, my Nasus is bigger than my opponent is life. I have atrocity. How many turns am I going to sit here before I cast it? Like, you know, and every single time they play one card, the percent that your percent confidence level that they don't have it goes up, right? You know, it's like, okay, well, that's one less card, and they played weird this turn. Like, I wouldn't have played. You know, there's just there's a lot of factors that can add to your conviction that they do or do not have certain cards. And I love playing the, like, because, you know, I can tell how my day went based on how many turns I'm willing to sit here to grind out 1%.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
You know, like there have been nights where I've just, you know, it's like Diamond 1, it's like I gotta win every game. Like we are grinding it out, and I will spend 5 turns with my opponent
playing Dune Keepers,
trying to play Dune Keepers and line up a position where I'm going to be able to have a barely lethal attack where my opponent will have to act
And that's
first.
the good thing about Thresh Nasus is that you like past your turn and then make the lethal attack. Then they definitely have to do something, and then you get to do the thing.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, sometimes it's hard to line that up or whatever. That takes 5 or 6 turns. Sometimes I'll do that. Other times my opponent will have 3 cards in their hand, and I'm in like plat. I'm just, you know, I've lost a few games in a row. I'm kind of sick of it.
Just jam it. Yeah, jam.
I'm just like, they like shouldn't have it. And I just jam it. And you know what? 95% of the time that works, right?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
You know, when you're pretty sure they don't have it, they usually don't.
I spent like all day against an Ezdraven, all game against an Ezdraven player, like playing around the second Scorched Earth, and then I just like cast it and they didn't have it. And I was like, but then the 2 games earlier, I'd spent all game playing around it.
And then they did.
And then they did have it, and I lost because they just had the Scorched Earth on the time. But then I'm like, maybe I gave them time to draw.
Yeah, maybe they drew it. You never
They
know.
had like 6 cards in hand the whole time.
It's rough.
Anyway.
Game's really hard. All right.
When they blind, like, Mystic Shot your 10-10 Nasus, you're like, this is fucking sus. You're like, they fucking have it.
See, okay, that's the other thing.
That's a bluff, though.
Yeah, boom. As Draven players out there, this is how you have to win with your bad deck, because your deck's bad. You have to pretend you have good cards, even when you don't, right? Like my absolute favorite play. My opponent was playing Ezdraven, and I was playing Thresh Nasus, and he just like straight up Mystic Shot in my Nasus on like turn 6, and I like emoted, he emoted, and then he just didn't cast it, and I was like, that's weird. I would have cast Scorched Earth there. Then like a couple turns later, he still hadn't cast it, and I was like,
he doesn't have it.
Is this guy just a sicko? Am I getting gamed here? And then I just like it was like so this is one of those games where you can tell I wasn't having a great day. So it flips to turn 9. I open with the Jinx emo, right? It's on turn 16, Mystic Shots my Nasus. Turn 7 doesn't happen. Turn 8 doesn't happen. I'm like, man, like I tapped pretty low there. I can't believe, because I had another one. So I was like, okay, kill it. Like, go. You know, kill the thing. And he just didn't. And so I was like, on turn 9, it hit to my thing. I had this 9/9 Nasus. My opponent was at 8. I just emoted and cast it. And then he scooped. I was like, I love this guy. Like, I just played around Scorched Earth for 3 turns until eventually I was like, this guy got me good. Like, he should have been dead 2 turns ago, and I didn't atrocity him. Like, he's been dead for a long time, and I just didn't cast it because I thought he had. Gave him credit for having it, and he just didn't.
Yeah, that's really sick.
That was my personal favorite ladder play of the week by whoever the hell that is Draven player was.
Yeah.
Still lost, but good line. All right. Our next question comes from Dragon. They ask, in recent times, there have been some cards that went from unplayed to tier 1, such as Spectral Matron and Sparring Student. What card in the current pool do you think has the most potential for becoming part of a tier 1 deck? I actually, if you'd asked me this question before the season had had happened, I would have unironically said Radiant Guardian, which I'm glad has gotten there.
Interesting. Well, sorry, that was kind of fast. What card in the current card pool do you think has the most potential to be in a tier 1 deck?
Yeah. Basically, what unplayable card do you think is the most likely to be good? Trevor Snooze Bottom?
Does Sumpworker count?
Sure.
Cheering Sumpworker.
I mean, literally every card counts. It's the card pool.
But like, does it count as unplayable? But it's looking pretty unplayable now. So
yeah, it's looking pretty bad right now. I have no idea.
I think it might be Trevor Snooze Bottom.
I like that answer.
That card is coming out of the woodworks in the last 2 days.
I've seen it 4 times. Yeah.
Yes. It is. There. So B333 he's like a Z1 trick, basically. Consistent high ladder player.
So he's
Z1
Faker.
Trick. He's Faker. Has been playing this awful Z deck. It's like Zed Ionia. Is Zed Ionia Freljord, I think?
No, it's
Noxus.
There's a Freljord version and a Noxus version. All you need to know, do you know the card Shadow Apprentice?
Yeah.
It's playing that with no way to turn it on. It's just a 1-mana 1/1 elusive.
Yeah.
What?
And it's playing
it's
Trevor
pump
Snooze
spells
Bottom.
And Battle Fury. And like the Noxus version is playing Decisive Maneuver. Like it's just trying to like...
And Brothers Bond.
Huge.
And like...
Yeah, and it's trying to Brothers Bond a 1-mana 1/1 with flying.
It is trying to do bad things to good people. I played against that deck. I played against that deck twice on stream. On Sunday, I think it was. And the first time I just got like... Noble walked in. He's like, "Hi, how's the stream going?" I'm like, "Dude, I just got hosed by Trevor Snooze Bottom. Like, he just Battle Furied his Dancing Droplet and then attacked me with Droplet and Snooze Bottom for 20. I just died. I was like, and then the next game, I queued into the same guy, and I was like, "I'm coming for you. Like I am
Give
not
me my
getting,
LP back.
I am not getting Snooze Bottomed again." Apparently. I've played against Trevor Snooze Bottom like 5 times in the last 2 days. Like people are onto this card.
Just to be, is that the card that supports a thing, and when it supports it, it makes a copy of the thing it supported with the same
really
stats?
Yeah, it makes a 1/1 elusive with the stats of the thing it supported. Called like a Mumble Snoot or something.
Mumble Sprite.
It sounds like a villain from Winnie the Pooh.
The thing it makes is always elusive?
Yeah.
Oh,
it's a 1/1 with elusive it's a 1/1 quote unquote, but it's an elusive creature with the stats of its supported creature.
Oh, so it doesn't need
ephemeral.
to be elusive. Interesting.
Correct.
That is important. Like just like that means it's just like lava axes you. Like
yeah, that's what it does. Yeah,
decimates your face.
The problem is that he's a 0/3, I think.
Yes, he is a 0. I believe he's a 4 mana 0/3.
3 mana, but
is he 3 mana?
He's one of those. For what it's worth, when my opponent put this card into play, I had to read it many times. I was like, Noble came in, and I was like, "Noble, have you ever heard of this card?" I just lost to it.
I think you can
0/3.
I think you can tell by how I immediately knew what the card did that I actually love this card and always have.
Well, it's like number 2 on the ladder, number 2 or 3 on the ladder. Right?
I'm not playing that deck, but I love this card.
Good for you. You were a stand-up gentleman. I went off on all these mono Zed players on stream. I was like, these guys, they think they can just come in here.
Oh god, and the Zed Prismatics
LP.
coming out. We forgot to talk about the Prismatics. Zed Prismatics coming out.
Our next question comes from Dr. Beeves.
Okay.
They ask, now that we have Darkstar/Cosmic skins coming, what other skin lines would you want to see in the game? So yeah, this just got announced today with the patch notes. We didn't talk about it at all, but there's no champion skins. Yay!
Yeah, there's 4 of them.
Cool.
There's Zed,
Scar Zed,
and Yasuo. Darkstar Zed and Yasuo are the ones that have new level up animations, I think. And then there's Shyvana and Cosmic Shyvana and Cosmic.
No clue.
It's the last one.
I don't know.
I saw the skin announcements, but I didn't even
notes.
look at which champions.
All right, give me a second to troll Reddit.
All right. Well, basically, I mean,
skins exist. What skins do we want?
I'm not going to buy a skin. I don't think hardly ever. I've played League of Legends for a long time. I never bought skins in that game. I don't think I'm going to buy skins in Legends of Runeterra either, unfortunately. This is a market that just isn't for me. They're really cool, and people like them a lot. So I'm glad that they exist.
So the only thing that stopped me from buying skins in League of Legends, because I still haven't spent money on League of Legends, and that accolade will never die.
Yeah.
Because I have been playing League for like 6 years, and I've spent $0 on it. That will never change.
You're the 1%.
But I've already spent money on Legend of Runeterra. The floodgates have already opened. Yeah,
So it's doomed.
It's Riven. It's Cosmic Riven, which is pretty
cool.
sick.
yeah, I don't care about that.
And Cosmic Shyvana, which a lot of people are playing, and then Zed and Yasuo. The Zed is really, really sick.
Honestly, I think that this is really cool, and I can't wait to see them in game. I'm just probably not going to be one of the people that buys them.
Cosmic, and the Riven is Dark Star. There's like a Dark Star.
Whatever.
They're all Cosmic-y. I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't really know how it's working. I'm no skin expert.
I want, first of all, I want Vigar in the game, and I want it to be Bad Santa Vigar.
That's good skin.
And I want a Mumu in the game,
Which
and
one?
I want
Which?
it to be Surprise Party Amumu.
I think it's worse than almost prom king Amumu. That's my favorite. That'd be a good Amumu skin.
I respectfully disagree, but that is a very good one.
Yeah, good one. I feel like I want meme skins in the game more than I want.
Oh,
real
yeah.
skins.
Oh, I want the real ones. They're so sick.
I don't care about the cool skins.
The real
I want
ones that
Bunny Fizz.
match the aesthetic of other cards. Like I would love like Assassin Ash that like matches the Noxus like
Yeah.
imagery, right? Like that
That'd be kinda
kind of
cool.
stuff is cool.
Sure.
So like I don't know. That's the kind of thing I'm into.
Oh, God. Incoming Thirst Trap skins.
Oh, there's going to be a lot of some kitty cat Katarina.
Yeah. Bunny Girl Riven.
Let's do it.
I am really excited.
The whole
for
pool party
the
line.
High Noon line is one of my favorite. High Noon Senna, High Noon Lucian, High Noon Ash.
maybe
are
come with
really
Jin.
good line.
High Noon Yasuo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of Yasuo skins probably. Spirit Blossom was a really cool skin line. That was probably my favorite aesthetic skin line. So if I had to pick one skin line I want to see, I'm going to go with Spirit Blossom. I just
did
really
a
like
Spirit
all those
Blossom
colors.
event.
Yeah, it's probably not going to. I mean, I don't know. It might not happen, but I think that those skins sold like hot fire in leagues. So I'd be surprised if we don't see them.
I specifically do not want Star Guardian.
Okay,
not?
that's
Why
reasonable.
not?
I just have seen
Just off it.
so much Star Guardian things. I don't know. I'm just so sick of seeing Star Guardian.
What is Star Guardian? Is it like
It's just like it's
sci-fi?
like really anime and like
But not like in a cool way. Like
I can't describe it. It's all right. You're gonna have to look.
it's
at
like
I'm not
I
an
describe
art
it as
guy.
like way worse Sailor Moon.
Oh, it's not like Dark Cosmic, the kind of stuff that they're doing right now.
No, it's like flashy and like bright colors.
Oh, yeah.
and
Okay, that
star
sounds good.
lit like
Oh, I
stars.
think I
everywhere.
know
think
what
like
you're talking about.
Lux. Yeah,
yeah.
it's like the embodiment of Lux, basically.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
All right. Our last question for the episode comes from Keon Spy, and they ask, "Do you have some questions for us, the community?" And we definitely do.
Yeah.
Why
Why are y'all so tilted? No, just kidding.
Do you like 49% win rate decks?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, like, what kind of content like do you want to see? Like, we want to start maybe doing like, what's the play? We're starting a channel in our Discord that has like where you post screenshots and we talk about what the play is.
Yep.
Like what? Yeah, like what kind of content do you want to do? Do you want like funny meme content? Do you want to like see cool decks? Like what? Like do you like deck breakdowns? Like what do you want? Like
Yeah.
I want to make it.
This
like,
is great. Yeah.
Do you want a
Very
meme
curious.
video? Like we can make a meme Dragon Chow video. We did it once.
Yeah, the Dragon Chow video was a good meme.
Yeah.
Wasn't
Do you
quite-
guys want us to start running? We've toyed with the idea of running a monthly tournament,
Yes.
and we want to look into it. And if that's something you guys are interested in, please let us
It would
know.
be really great to hear if people would play in that before we put all of the
Effort
time and effort
and money
into putting it together.
Yeah.
So like if you're interested in playing in any events, and what scale would you like these events to be, right? Like, would you like them to be higher entry fee, higher prizes? Would you like them to be low entry fee, lower entry barrier?
Yeah, like
et
do
cetera.
you
Like,
want to pay $20 to fight against a bunch of people for 1,000 in prizes, or do you want to pay $2, $3,
$1 or
$4, $5 to play for $20 or whatever?
Yeah, and like get the experience. And I guess my questions for you, community, are you a member of our Discord channel? Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Do you follow us on Twitter?
Twitch?
Have you followed our stream, twitch.tv/ChampSelectPodcast, where we stream 6 days a week?
Have you smashed that like button?
Have you smashed the like button?
Oh, yeah. Retweet. Send it to your friends.
Yeah. Have you shared this podcast with all of your close friends and not so close acquaintances? I highly recommend it.
Yeah, if you get 3 friends and they get 3 friends,
Yeah, well,
pretty soon
you can get a
we're going to get a letter from the IRS.
we want you dispersing our content with the fervor of an MLM salesman.
Straight back to the Wolf of Wall Street. Would you like a Champ Select podcast punch card? How about a mug?
Yeah.
A t-shirt? Okay. So,
like honestly, if people wanted t-shirts, we could make them. So
okay.
That's another thing.
Aside from all the jokes, I want to thank you all for listening to this episode of Champ Select. Like I said, the description of whatever you're listening to this on will have all of the links to all of the platforms I just described, which you can and should be a member and following the community on. And without further ado, I think we will see you all on the next week of Champ Select. Bye-bye.